Today's US presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump was a much more competitive affair than the previous one, which saw Joe Biden dumped by the faceless people in the Democratic Party. Now, given her reputation as a cackling lightweight, Kamala Harris actually performed surprisingly well and could easily appeal to low-information voters, which, let's face it, is most of the voting population. Joining me now to go through some of the key moments and what it means for Australia is ADH TV's Jason Morrison. Jason, while you and I would not agree with the politics of Kamala Harris, you'd have to say she was coherent and formidable today.
Yeah, I think the polite thing you say is she exceeded expectations. Kamala Harris is kind of, defined as this, as you put it, cackling, kind of hand-talking, audience clapping, kind of caricature of someone who's sort of, I don't know what the hell she thought she was doing when she's doing all that stuff. And she's been able to see herself through this as being someone who's capable of standing next to a fairly intimidating figure. That said, look, a debate like this, what does a debate like this achieve? If you're into policy, if you're into detail, if you're into all this sort of stuff, it gives you a lot of things to pull both sides apart. If you're into who will perform best in the job as president, I actually still think he looks strong. He looks strong, he looks resolute, he looks serious. By contrast, she looks like still a bit of a political game player, a bit of an actress. I mean, all the kind of overdoing, gesturing and the hands up in shot and everything like that. All that sort of stuff, I think, just makes people believe she's just kind of a caricature of a political player. But, I think when Americans sort of sit down and think about this, if they're fair-minded, and, most people who have already decided who they're going to vote for anyway are just looking for the other side to fall apart. If they're fair-minded, though, they're going to look at this and start saying, mainstream media's done it again. Mainstream media has kind of taken a side in this. And if you watch that America's ABC program, you'll say this looks a lot like Australia's ABC. It looks like it's in the tank. And that's, I guess, the takeaway I got from it. And I think in many respects, that'll feed well for Trump, because a lot of people will look at this and say this is just what we thought would happen, that when put to the test, the mainstream media delivered once again for the Democrats. Well,
I think that's true. I think there's no doubt they were more sympathetic to Harris. I'm not so sure about your other point about Trump. Well, certainly I agree with you on your point that Trump looked more serious and more presidential, but I think a lot of people go on the vibe, and we'll come to that in a minute, because I think she projected a strong vibe. But before we get to that, let's have a look at some of the key issues. Jason, we're only moments into the debate when the very contentious issue of abortion came up. Let's take a look.
The government and Donald Trump certainly should not be telling a woman what to do with her body.
Would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade.
Will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that?
Jason, I thought this was interesting. Trump is right. America's left, like Australia's, legislates wherever it can for abortion to-term without restrictions. That is an incontrovertible fact. So Trump was playing to the extreme nature of the policy, which not many people know about, trying to win mainstream votes. But of course, Kamala played to the emotion, women's rights, and the impacts on the vulnerable. Who do you think wins in that argument?
Well, I know who it's hard to win, and that is for Trump to win in that zone. I mean, you've got a woman talk about a woman's rights versus a bloke talk about his view about a woman's rights. No bloke ever wins in that argument, and that's just simply how it is. It's an unfair situation, but it's reality. Look, I have a kind of a different take on this. I thought America's got a lot of problems, and I was over there recently, and I kind of saw a lot of them, and they stand out. And I don't think these issues are about abortion. I don't think America's big crises right now are about abortion. Inflation is a big issue in America. Homelessness is a huge issue in America. Safety is a big issue in America. And it's kind of like that all got pushed aside. And I think we spent more time talking in that debate about abortion than we did talk about inflation and the cost of living and the cost of surviving and the cost of power and all this sort of stuff, which actually matters.
I think that goes to the very big difference between Australian and American politics. That is seen as it's a touchstone issue there, and it always comes up in a way that it doesn't here. On illegal immigration, Jason, which is one of Trump's strong points. He probably didn't need to raise this issue of migrants eating their pets in Springfield, Missouri, but it was one of the more amusing moments. Let's take a look.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
So I should have said Springfield, Ohio there, but did he need that to win the immigration argument?
No, and all he has again done is given all the mainstream what they want. They all want to say, you know, Trump is nuts, and this is the narrative. But look, okay, a stupid thing to bring up only because it's kind of largely a bit untested. It's a 24-hour-old story, and Trump is reacting to TV reports. Then David Muir, who, you know, and people got to understand the anchors of this debate. David Muir is a newsreader in America. ABC World News Tonight, I think last time I checked, is the #1 news service across America with a very diminished audience, I might say. So it's ahead of NBC, CBS, Fox and whatever. He's in front. So he's a big figure. If I can put him in Australia terms, I don't know, he's like a Mark Ferguson, a Peter Overton, a Carl Stefanovic in many respects. Where I'm going with all of this is, you know, he kind of saw himself as fact checker on the run here. Yeah. That's not his job. No, in a debate, his job is not to fact check. That's her job to fact check him and vice versa. But he kind of saw it as his job.
He did. He intervened in that, and that was really unfair. Jason, the election will be won in the swing states like Pennsylvania. The Electoral College is everything in a presidential debate, not so much the popular vote. So Pennsylvania, where that debate was being held, is absolutely crucial. Kamala Harris has a past of saying she's against fracking. She's sort of evolved on that. She felt very, very vulnerable. She was out to try and neutralise the issue.
I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking.
So, Jason, she's a climate change zealot. Is she believable on keeping the fossil fuel industry alive?
Is anyone who's a climate change zealot believable on any of this stuff? And this is it again. Fact check. Where was the fact check? Where was David Muir or the other host there saying, but you said this? There was none of that. And the whole, we'll call it, you know, the genre of this debate was, Trump, you said this. Yeah. You said this, you said this, and then they've gone back to, what did he say? What do you think about what he said? So that was the whole shtick of this. And I think, again, it comes down to she's not believable on this because actions speak louder. And then, of course, the farcical thing about it, this is not someone who's just wandered up out of the park and decided they want to have a run for president. This is someone's been sitting in the co-driver's seat. Yep. Like, what is all these things she's going to do? What the hell and when is she going to do them? Yeah. She's had a chance and not done them.
We'll come to that in a second, Jason. But you're absolutely right. She's getting a leave pass by the mainstream media. And, of course, anyone who's looking at this critically, as you and I were today, can see what's going on with the mainstream media and why there's such a problem with the mainstream media. Jason, I thought Harris was strong when she, not because I agree with her on this, but I think to the low information voter, she was strong when she showed empathy and emotion, something that, you know, Trump, who's probably more logical, more combative on the debate stage, struggles with. Here she is.
I say we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page.
Yeah. She's trying to win on the vibe here, isn't she, Jason?
Oh, yeah, but that's garbage chatter. You know, that really is, you know...
Is it persuasive, though? Will people fall for it?
I think Americans are looking in times, I mean, you know, as much as they all kind of sniggered when Trump talked about World War III, I think there is a sense that the world is kind of at a bit of a tilting point right now, and you've got someone who wants to talk about the vibe and the feel and whatever. I think they're looking for strength. They're looking for decisiveness. They're looking for track record. And the interesting thing is both of them have a track record. He's got his 4 years. We know how he reacts. We know what he does. She's got one too. It's only up to 3.5 years. But Tell me what it is.
Yeah.
And you know, I think that's a really unique position to be in. And I can't actually think of a time where we've had this sort of a situation to properly assess, where you've got someone who's actually at the controls and someone who only just was at the controls.
Yeah.
And you know how both are going to react. And I think, you know, talking about the vibe and saying all the things, that'll win you points with the dipsticks on campuses, and that'll win you points with people who kind of think, you know, what they hear on The View is what America's talking about. But really,
I hope you're
as
right,
it matters.
Jason. I hope you're right. But, you know, political strategists say people don't vote on what they know, they vote on how they feel, and certainly that's the Democrats' pitch. Jason, Trump counterpunched well to Harris's claim to have a border plan with this withering riff about Joe Biden.
I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate, because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border, because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed, you'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you'll say, come on down to the office, let's sign a bill. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her.
That's Trump at his best. I guess there's a bigger question that goes back to your point about the mainstream media. Why hasn't anyone investigated as to who is actually running the United States of America?
I don't think they need to investigate, because the answer is not many.
Well, it's some faceless people. It's some faceless people that are pulling the strings.
It's right. I mean, the bloke sitting on the beach chair all the time. It's pretty tragic. And look, that is something. And I did think about this as we were watching the debate and thought, you know, imagine being an American right now thinking, they're probably thinking these are my choices. You know, I mean, you know, who's the best and the second best option right now? And I don't say that necessarily to denigrate either. I just think, you know, there's surely in a country like, there's got to be greater people than both of them to stand up at this time. But then it comes down, and greater people than Biden to bench. It comes down to this. You know, you think, you know, there's a lot of things that are testing America right now at an international level, and even at the basic domestic cost of living level. And who's actually really doing anything about it right now. And that's the tragedy of it. And I think, you know, to Trump's point, there's nothing that stops them acting. There's nothing, except there is something. There's a lot that stops them acting. It's ideology, and they just simply don't believe in it. They believe and they want you to think they're going to do it, but the track record tells you, and hers particularly, that she's not. You know, people will look at this whole thing in the end and they'll say, who won it? And I'll tell you, overwhelmingly, probably they'll say she won it because she performed better than was expected. How tragic that is the benchmark for determining who wins it. But do debates really matter? Really? When it comes down to it?